says, get that India. Big boy.
Sivo! Call an ambulance! Maybe call a police! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to another instant reaction edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me on a glorious King's birthday long weekend public holiday evening after the Eels dismantled the Bulldogs to sweep them for the seasons, my good mate Sixties. How you doing on this wonderful day, big fella?
Win over the Bulldogs is always a great thing to celebrate. But you and I, mate, we've got plenty to say here. I'll just throw it back to you right now.
But before we do dive into this game, there is a lot to talk about. Quick shout out to the two sponsors of the Tip Sheet, Big Swing Golf, Northmead, and Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta, making the show happen each and every episode. Like I said, 60s, Eels dominated the Bulldogs, but...
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
What was going on today, mate? Like, Parramatta Eels, 55% possession, completely dominated the Bulldogs in all phases of the game. Penalty count, well, Brad Arthur might as well have another rant in the post-game. If Tim Sheens is allowed to, then I'm surely Brad Arthur is. They lost the penalty count 8-2. 8-2.
Yeah, it was putrid.
And
it was putrid.
And not only that, there were a string of bizarre, contradictory, flat-out confusing calls from both the main official, Liam Kennedy, and the bunker, which I believe was Cummings in the bunker, or at least that's who was listed, where we have... It's okay for the Dogs to strip someone on the ground, but it's not okay for Parramatta to strip someone on the ground in the space of 10 minutes, which actually directly led to the Dogs' second try, by the way. We have Micah Sivo scoring a double with the second try, beautifully worked by the Parramatta Eels. Bailey Simonson does what the NRL instructs. You're not allowed to stop before or in the line to impede the defense, so he runs through, holds his line. The young rookie Kaluapu chooses to push him and engage him, and it comes back because the bunker deems, in their opinion, once again having discretionary powers and not being black and white, that he would have made an impact on that defensive play.
That was one of the worst no-try calls that you're ever going to see in the modern game. It really was. I mean, can you imagine if a call like that was made in a match-deciding call in a grand final or in a final series match?
They would storm the field. Fans would storm the field. Absolutely ridiculous. I am very frustrated because, again, you come back. Eels were nearly 0.34 seconds slower for their play the ball speed. The Dogs were clearly laying in the ruck at times in that first half in particular. And no calls came.
Yeah.
We got our second penalty in like the 70th minute. Or even later.
No, it was later than that.
It was later. It was like 75th minute or something like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely ridiculous. And look, that sort of stuff you sort of get used to with the NRL because sometimes, bad officiating games in terms of the flow of penalties happens. The strip and the no try or the reversal of the try are legitimately concerning because the process is catastrophically failing. Again, you go to Occam's razor and you say, and we combine Occam's razor with whatever the turn of phrase is about, do not mistake malice for incompetence. But at some point, the refs just blotting it out. If it is incompetence, then it needs to be addressed because it is bad. It is bad, 60s.
Yeah. Look, and might I also point out, it's not so much that there is such a lopsided penalty count as well. It's that... And the problem isn't as much with the penalties that are conceded, it's the penalties that aren't received. Because as you pointed out, you had the Bulldogs laying all over in the ruck in that first half. You essentially had them adjudged as being perfect in the ruck and perfect on offsides and all of that sort of stuff.
In a game where he was killing us on the 10 metres too, by the way.
Eight penalties to 2 plus that set restart that they got. So it was... I think we got a late set restart. Did we not? Was that a set restart in that no try to Sivo? I'm just trying to think. There might have been one around there. But anyway, regardless, how on earth it was? They came up with those couple of calls with the the referee's challenge of ours that was turned down on Cartwright when it was clear
He lost the ball.
Yeah, he was losing the ball. There was full momentum in the tackle anyway. Now, and what about how late the offloads were allowed today?
Yeah, the held calls were very, very, very slow.
Oh, it was. Look, all I will say is that the officiating in this game was putrid. And you know what? The Eels came away winners, convincing winners. So when we're talking about the officiating being putrid, we're not complaining. We're not whinging about a win that got away from us. It's just, it was frustrating to watch the whole thing unfold.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't first grade standard. And that's not good enough. It's really not good enough. And look, I've said before that a referee's job is not an easy one. You can accept mistakes that happen on the run.
But we're talking about the bunker here, like for the most part.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was about to say. Is that in these instances we had bunker calls that were made there? I'm still dumbfounded by the no try rule.
How is Micah Sivo on report, by the way? After this entire weekend, where Tino Fa'asuamala-Awi and Jaraburi Hargraves are allowed to elbow and forearm people in the face, it's Micah Sivo that goes on report.
Yeah, well, I hate to tell you, but I think I've got a fair idea what the outcome might be.
Yeah, he's going to be the one that cops the first charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into the positives, because there were plenty in this game, 60s. A lot to talk about on an individual and team basis. Systems and players stepping up in the absence of significant strike power on the sidelines.
And just before we get into the Eels' performance, let's get this off the bat right away now. I don't want to talk about the New South Wales Cup game, because if we were talking about putrid officiating performances, we saw today, look, I think there was something like 4 players in that team that have an NRL contract and 2 on development contracts. And apart from that, it was second tier. Ron Massey.
It was
Cup players.
Cup versus Massey, essentially, yes. And against the leading team in the competition, and lo and behold, the scoreline reflected that.
Yeah.
And look,
there is nothing to be gained. Like, I hate to say it, there isn't anything to be gained by talking about it. It was our worst fears, which we discussed in the preview. And it basically turned out the way that we thought it might turn out. I said, there's nothing really to be talking about.
I think there's a conversation to be had down the road about our approach to the supplementary players and how we identify those to round out our cup squad, because it's pretty clear that right now we are not in a good position when we have significant call-ups to the NRL, as we've seen in the forwards. In particular, there's a whole stack of forwards that are doing very well in the NRL, by the way, that could be back in New South Wales Cup when reinforcements arrive in first grade. But yeah,
well, I would suggest to you, 40, that we're currently operating on a roster of 27. Right, we were back to 28 when we released Jake, but I think we've made. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong, but I think the decision has been made to not play Mitch Rain any further.
Well, he hasn't been seen for a long time.
No, he hasn't been seen for a long time. He was training with the squad when he wasn't selected. I haven't seen him train with the squad for a while. Maybe that's just me not noticing it, but I'm suspecting that he's no longer playing with the club in that, and he takes up a top 30 spot. So by my reckoning, we're operating on 27, which would also mean that with all the injuries, you work it out. We've got players that played today in the NRL team that aren't on top 30 contracts.
Yes, correct.
So in Hands and Moretti, and then by the time that you're looking at the players that were there in the New South Wales Cup team, as I said, there were 4 players in that team that are on an NRL contract, and that's it. 2 development squad players. I think it was 4 and 2 by my reckoning. But so look, injuries, stand downs, even amongst the players that are our supplementary players aren't available due to injury. Jaden Yates, I spoke to him the other night. He's still injured. He's out for a while.
So attrition is taking its toll in the New South Wales Cup.
It is taking its toll massively, and I just wanted to mention that now because I think it then speaks volumes for the fact that the NRL squad is travelling as they are with the not just the injuries that we've got, but also the depth of the squad is being really, really tested purely in numbers. So all the blokes, the next man up is doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
yes,
so I want to, in not talking about the New South Wales Cup, the players that have been playing New South Wales Cup that have been called up deserve congratulations because they're getting the job done. And look, I think it's no coincidence as well that the departure of Jake Arthur has seen a significant impact on the form of the New South Wales Cup scene.
No doubt.
So,
no doubt.
Anyway, so, mate, I'll throw it over to you now for the main stats. From this,
Eels 34, running roughshed over the Bulldogs 12. Burton and Perham scoring for the Dogs. Couple of probably soft tries. I think the boys will be pretty dirty on themselves on the replay review of this one, in particular that Burton try where Kalawapu beat 4 or 5 Eels. But on the King's long weekend birthday, the King bagged the first half Hattie in the first 24 minutes, mate. He was very busy. He and Mitch Moses combining beautifully for 2 of those 3 tries. Bailey Simonson, Will Penasini, and Micah Sivo rounding out the scorers. Micah robbed of a double. The big man could have extended his lead in the NRL to 3 tries clear of the chasing pack led by Campbell Graham, I believe. And instead he's only got a 2-try lead. Mitchell Moses pretty sharp off the tee today, 5 from 6. He did try a field goal to round out the first half, but it got charged down. On to the team stats. Eels dominating 55% to 45%. Time of possession, 6.5 minutes in their favour. Completion rates, those 60s. I think they got a little bit loose at the back end of that second half, the final quarter. They ended up down at 65%, 28 to 43. Canterbury, they were very efficient, 80%, 32 or 40. Eels ahead in all key attacking stats except line breaks. I don't really remember the Dogs making 7 line breaks, but NRL.com's got them down to 7 line breaks to our 6.
I think a lot of those were in the first half. I think it was something like 5 to 4 the line breaks in the first half.
There you go. Eels plus 550 metres, plus 120 post-contact metres, 53 tackle breaks to 39. They were up 11 metres on average set distance, just about 10.5 metres. That's crazy. Play the ball speed as we've come to expect. It's worse than our opposition. 3-7-4 for the Blue and Gold versus 3-4 for the Berries. 19 offloads to the Dogs. They actually out-offloaded the Eels by +2 to Parramatta 17. But going down to kick the fusel, those fabled Burton bombs, they didn't have much of an impact here. Parramatta with the Schmick 100%, 100% there, 60s on the bomb defusals. Effective tackle rate, actually, Eels below the Dogs some way, somehow. They had less missed tackles and only slightly more ineffective tackles. But I guess the bulk of the Dogs tackling made their more effective tackle rate, right? They were more efficient.
Yeah, I think we started to see very much around the tries that the Dogs scored, that there were a lot of missed tackles that were happening. They weren't necessarily leading to line breaks, all of those missed or ineffective tackles, but there was a couple of moments where we just looked a bit loose. And the other side of the coin too with that is that I can almost guarantee that there was a lot that were happening over on the side where Dylan Brown is normally defending.
Yeah. NRL.com has the Dogs down for 9 interchanges.
Oh. Okay.
What? Okay.
Have they accidentally included
HIA? They got HIA separate, and they say 1 for that one. So I don't know if they're including that as a total. I have to go back and have a look at another game where HIAs are a factor. So that's very odd. But let's go on to individual performers. For the Eels, Quentin Gutherson, 180 metres, 3 tries, a whole bag of tackle breaks there, 6 of them. We had Sivo go for 140. Bailey Simonson over 200. Well done there, 211 metres, 8 tackle breaks. Some good defence too. Sean Russell, 124. Moses up over 100. Reg Jr., Bryce Cartwright, who was outstanding, I thought. Jermaine Hopgood, Offhickey, Ogden, Makatoa, all in triple figures. So very good games there. Daejarn, 10 runs, 80 metres, a couple of tackle breaks, a line break, a try assist. 2 try assists, sorry, because he got the first try with that well-placed bomb. So players performing across the park, as you'd imagine, in a win with that sort of scoreboard 60s. But what were your main takeaways here? Because there's a lot to talk about. We had a sort of hot and cold start. There was some issues with that left edge. Andrew Davey and Daejarn having a bad read on, bad tackle on Kalawapu, leading to the Dogs equalise in the 6th minute. But they managed to sort of figure it out to some degree. And we saw a Mitchell Moses masterclass on a weekend where Nico Hines really bombed it with the pressure on. Mitch showed the value of his experience and those extra years, steering a team around the park today.
Yeah, look, I looked at the match this way. We started off for some unknown reason deciding that we wanted to play hot potato football along with the Bulldogs, and we were messaging during that game and both lamenting that type of play. And then as soon as they got back into playing para football, which was winning the middle before looking to push the ball, what do you know? The tries came. The field position, the tries. I was genuinely worried at the start because I thought, what on earth is possessing them? I think they got carried away with the openness of the play that the Bulldogs were going for, and we were almost playing directly into their hands. You can bet as soon as that try was scored by the Bulldogs that the message well and truly went out, pull your heads in. Like, just get back to the match plan and do what you need to do. I don't think, as far as the team performance is concerned, it's not one that I'll be writing too many superlatives about, because I think there were far too many errors from our perspective. I thought we got a bit too loose in defence. The one thing that we've done quite well all year has been the scramble, and I thought, geez, we really needed to scramble today. And to be honest, the Bulldogs wasted some opportunities off their line breaks in that first half with the number of times that they went for the kick. And I know why they were going for the kick, because they obviously rated their chances of being able to outpace the Eels to the ball, like a kick put through, that they were going to win the race, because they certainly have superior speed out on the flanks. But it showed a real impatience, the way that the Bulldogs played in that regard. I think they were trying to get get across the line the cheapest way possible, rather than maybe taking a tackle on a break, because any coach worth their salt would know that Parramatta don't hold down in the tackle. If they made a break and they were tackled on the break, they were going to almost be guaranteed a fast play the ball, because we let teams get a fast play the ball, and who knows what might have happened there. So look, I'm not happy about the fact that we got a bit loose defensively, and don't get me wrong, I think that has everything to do with the players that we've got out and the disruptions that are going on. But I guess it's one of those games where if you don't play at your best, but you're still getting the win, that's where you got to be happy. So, yeah, I guess I'm happy from that regard. We got the 2 points. I think I said to you this week that the next 2 to 3 weeks can really determine our season. If we can get the wins across these weeks, that the Eels are in a really good position, because players will be coming back. They'll be going from 3 wins into a bye. So, I mean, next week's going to be a challenge, but I just want to relay one quick thing to the listeners about today. I had the opportunity to speak very quickly to Mitch Moses on Saturday, and I said to him, why do we win against the Bulldogs? And he said, why? And basically, he just ended up saying, because we've got a better team. And I think when all was said and done, the Eels did have a better team than the Bulldogs, and that's why we won the game.
Yep, agreed.
So,
Yeah,
mate, what about your takes?
yeah. Well, I really liked. I mean, obviously, I was texting you furious at the start, saying this looks like another game where we're getting caught into the Bulldogs' pace. You know, we're sort of getting sucked into playing silly hot potato football, and they scored that try, and I was like, okay, this is now the coin flip moment for the game. Which way do the Eels go? Do they double down on playing to the Bulldogs' tempo, or do they go back to the game plan? And lo and behold, they went back to the game plan and got the business. And that second quarter of the second quarter of the game, the second part of the first half was really good. Really good. Mitchell Moses just stamped his authority on the game. The forwards really, rolled their sleeves up, set the platform. You got to see some wonderful eyes up football from Moses. The instant he identified that TPJ was marking him for that try for the Guffer, was it the Guffer? Had he try? It was, wasn't it? He just he knew straight away. It was tackle 4. So getting tackled there means that Daejarn has to take over the kicking roles, and it's not like Arce didn't do a good job later on, but at that point we weren't, fully convinced that he was ready to do that. But Moses backed himself and set it up, so I really liked that. And yeah, I liked the options off the bench. I thought again, Offiki Ogden was excellent, Makatoa very good, Matt Dury came on and was solid. Daejarn Arce again. We showed today that even with that sort of manic start to the game where we got out of tempo, that we have systems in place, we have players across the park, even for these injuries, that we can trust ourselves to put someone like Daejarn in. And Daejarn's obviously got his own talent there. He's not a scrub, but we didn't try and hide him. We put him in positions to succeed, and he did that. He exposed Kalawapu, and was it Preston Campbell down that edge? I'm not sure. Whoever the right edge back row is for the Dogs.
It's not Campbell. It's Preston. Jacob Preston, isn't it?
Yes, Preston. Yeah. You're right. Oh no, Jade Knockleball down that side, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Yep.
I can't remember. So whichever way it goes, and he put on the try for Bowie Simonson. He also took over some kicks and kicked really nicely. So yeah, really, that's really good. As much as the errors and the missed tackles and those line breaks are going to make for important film review and stuff for us to tidy up on ahead of Manly and the Dolphins. It was in that regard, it is a great reminder of the talent that's in this team and the systems that are in place that let us succeed. And while again, it goes back to the idea that you're talking about 60s in your spotlight and whatnot about how the Eels may have missed the 2 points earlier in the season, but there's a reason why we've got the third or fourth best for and against in competition now, because these systems and these players are in place. And yes, sometimes the games go against you. That is football. Sometimes you don't get the result, and you can go for 3 games in a row. But the Eels have systems in place. They have people in positions. They have coaches and support staff. All the support staff, whether it's Salts or Trent Elkin, everyone that's there doing great jobs. And that's why we're now in a position to make a run, even with all these injuries. We're going to go to Manly, potentially down 4 players in State of Origin if things play out the way some of the media's talked about. Moses, Junior, Reagan Campbell-Gillard. I mean, I saw Voss on Twitter saying that he thinks, he sort of spoke it as if it was a fact and not opinion, but he thinks that Gutherson could be the Origin reserve. So Origin reserves, the 18th man, they travel with the team. They don't get released usually. We could be down 4 players. And we're going up against a Manly team that are going to be missing some strike too. No DCE, no Tom Tabojevic. If Jake is fit, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the call up, but missing a couple of key players there. But we'll still give it a hell of a shake because we've got these systems in place.
Well, what's the modern cliche these days? Trust the process.
Yeah, exactly. It is 100% a case of trusting the process. And the Eels have a good process in the NRL. And yes, it was very frustrating to start the season the way we did and have the football luck go the wrong way and have players make the odd mistake here or there that was ultimately important to the result. But we've seen now that even with all the injuries, even with all the bad luck, even with the bizarre officiating that we saw today, the Eels are a team that can get the job done and get the job done by plenty.
Yeah, they are. And it's going to be tough this week. It's a 5-day turnaround. Of all weeks to have a 5-day turnaround.
This is the same as the Darwin. Like, there is some serious issues with NRL scheduling. Like, I know that they've got a formula, an algorithm that measures all this up, and this is not a simple thing. You're balancing 17 teams across venues that need to be matched against different codes and whatnot, but that's not acceptable.
Yeah. And look, we know that every so often they try to keep it quite minimal throughout a season for teams where possible, and to an extent, they've also got issues around the fact that the broadcasters get the say on what matches they want on which day. So they've, all of that sort of thing has to be factored into it. But yeah, going from a Monday match into the Saturday game, when the roster is as depleted as it is going to be a big ask. It is going to be depleted even more because of Origin. We know that it's going to be the case. How badly it's the case, we're yet to figure out. And what we do know is that there are, as we spoke about earlier, there are only 4 players on an NRL contract running around in the New South Wales Cup side. And if we are to lose, let's face it, this is could be the reality. Moses, Paulo, RCG, and potentially the King. That's 4 places gone out of the first grade team. I've got no idea how you start to fill some of those positions. I don't know how you fill spine positions like that. I really don't. I mean, you have to have, if we're losing a halfback, you have to have someone come in who can kick. I mean, the crazy reality is that if Ethan Sanders hadn't got injured, he may have had a rapid ascension to NRL.
There is an outside chance that he still might. If we're that depleted, you might have to.
Well, he'll be coming back. I doubt he'll be going back into flag. I think when he comes back, he'll be going into
Cup minimum,
New South Wales Cup.
Yeah,
but look, if you follow BA's logic with what he's been doing with the team, which is he looks for the minimal disruption that he possibly can, and as we talked about, trust the processes, trust the systems, that the next person up gets the job done. It may well be that Jordan Rankin is playing halfback against Manly.
Is there such a thing as minimal disruption when you're losing 4 of your best players on top of all the injuries?
there probably isn't, but the thing is that someone like Gutho might have been considered an option to go into the halves.
Yeah, and then you put Russell, the fullback, Dunster onto the flank or something like that.
Yeah,
and just work with Daejarn there in the halves.
Yeah, but you have to have someone that's got a kicking game. We saw a little bit of Daejarn's. I don't know. I mean, even when he's playing in the halves in New South Wales Cup, Rankin is the primary kicker. So someone has to come in and be the primary kicker if we are going to be without both Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses. I mean, the reality is that we will be very close to fielding what might have been the majority of a New South Wales Cup team at the start of the year in first grade this coming week.
Yep.
That is
if the full extent of our Origin selections and injuries, and look, per the Parramatta Eels injury report that was released on Team List Tuesday this week, we do have optimism to believe, or reason for optimism to believe, that Madison and Joe Opengahi could be back next week, but they've still got to pass their fitness tests, and calf injuries can be tricky for that. So that would be very welcome ins. I got to say that. With Junior almost 100% out and Reg quite possibly out. I know Daily Telegraph are running a lead on Spencer Leniu replacing Tavita Pangai Jr., which I wouldn't be upset about on both accounts. A, because I think Leniu's a pretty decent player, and B, having Reg in the fold, as much as it is mean to do him dirty for that, for both the honour of representing your state and obviously the extra paycheck. Obviously, the Eels could certainly use him.
Yeah, and Spencer's probably the poster boy when it comes to water bottles.
Oh gosh!
You
talk about seeing the red mist though. He was ready to take his head off. Like I haven't seen a player with that much fury in his eyes in a long time. He was definitely seeing the red mist.
yeah, it's he's not. He wouldn't be the first rugby league player to have the red mist as soon as you cross the stripe out onto the field and have something go against you. But yeah. Anyway, mate, let's get into our best on field there, or maybe give a shout out to whatever players that we think deserve it at the moment before we get to our 3-2-1. Look, I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward 3-2-1 as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to give a bit of a shout out to Jermaine Hopgood. I thought he was really good. I thought Brendan Hands was very, very solid out there in the middle. You mentioned him before. Both of these fellas off the bench, Ogden and Makatoa, I thought they were very good, and even in the short stints that they had, both Dury and Luca Moretti, I thought they were quite solid in their time out there. But when it comes to the 3 points, there is only one selection, and that is Mitch Moses.
Yeah, I know the King bagged the Hattie on the King's birthday long weekend, and that writes itself as a really fun sort of either headline or byline. But Mitch Moses was on another level today, and like I said, when the pressure was on, all this talk about Origin, and he still might not get picked. It could be Adam Reynolds or it could be Nico Hines or whatever. But a strong reminder to everyone of the journey that he has gone as an Eel, from being that sort of promising but flawed Tigers prospect and coming to Parramatta and really working on all aspects of his game. The defensive hustle was outstanding today. Game management, heads up vision, the long kicking, the goal kicking. It was the full package.
Yeah. So that then makes the next selection easy because you've just spoken about him, Clint Gutherson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I thought he was easily the 2 points.
The only knock I can think of was he was the last person to miss Kalawapu for that first try after Davey and Arcee made a bit of a meal of it. But at that point, he was sort of off balance and it was a tough tackle. Aside from that, classic Guffo backing up, being Johnny on the spot. Really nice ball distribution down that left edge, like we talked about in the preview podcast. Unlucky to have a try assist taken away. Should have had two because of the bunker's insanity. And he would have finished the game with 2 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 2 try assists, 6 tackle breaks, and 180 plus meters, plus the 3 tries. So that would have been a hell of a stat line.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the 1 point, well, I actually am thinking about Jermaine Hopgood there. I know I've just mentioned him. I was Bryce Cartwright's in the mix there. Yeah,
Cartwright is probably going to be my 1 point. Also, a shout out to Daejarn Arcee, who I thought was very, very good on debut for the Eels. He had that one miss on a Laipu that we've talked about before, but he was involved in all aspects of playmaking, running, passing, kicking. The Eels trusted him to do the job, and that speaks volumes to his ability.
Yes, yeah. Look, I thought that the running games of both Reg and Junior was strong, but there wasn't as much asked of them defensively, which is what I was seriously looking at Reg, because his carries today were really, really important. But I think it comes down to a 3-way pick between Cardi, Jermaine Hopgood, Brendan Hands for that 1 point. And I'm probably going to just give it to Jermaine Hopgood because I think he's one of those players where do they win the game without him? Maybe not. So that tips it his way.
I'm going Cardi, but like you said, Hopgood was damn near right up there. Very unlikely to miss out on Origin selection. Queensland have announced their team. They went with Jeremiah Nane and Mo Fotuaika were the other candidates there. I think Corey Horsburgh is the 18th man or 19th man, and Jermaine not in camp. Very unlucky not even to be in camp there. But I suppose that speaks towards the glut of riches that Queensland suddenly find themselves in with the forwards. But yeah, Bryce Cartwright for me, 1 point, continues his rise this year. He has just been outstanding, not just in attack and defense, but I think he might be our best off the ball player, 60s. He is always hustling, puts a lot of kick pressure on, is constantly backing up. He had a great tackle on It wasn't the one where he got penalised for stripping on Burton. We had a really good tackle on Burton where the Dogs started playing hot potato late in the game, and we just throwing the ball around and he cut him down from the posts. He's doing some very, very good stuff. And we saw the nous of that kick that found touch 1 metre out where it sort of almost got the result for the Eels. He's offloading effectively and not throwing silly offloads. And, just very, very good all-round footballer right now.
Yeah, no, as I said, I'm sticking with Jermaine Hopgood. Those 33 tackles that he made, just the 3 misses. I just think that the tidying up work that he did, just that workload that he had, because he also not only just the tackles that he made, but he's had 129 run meters as well.
Very good game, and like you said, also Brendan Hands, who I think you can probably knock him for that forward pass in the first half. And I'm not sure what happened on the second try, where I think there was a bit of miscommunication defensively with Junior. But given that he was asked to play 80 minutes for the second time in his career, he's having a really good run this year. I mean, speaking of running, he has a nice little. He went for nearly 100 meters, 60s.
Yeah, I know.
Runs, 96 meters. Like he was very effective out of dummy half. Didn't get the line breaks, but was constantly putting the Dogs on the back foot. Had a couple of really nice short side plays linking up with the correct players there. So, he is really going from strength to strength as our interchange dummy half. And, obviously Hodjo out with, I believe, a neck injury today, 60s. So I have to wait and see what that was about. But he is more than capable of stepping up when asked to do more than just being the rotation dummy half.
Yeah. So, mate, I think we've just about covered everything that we can after this match. A really big match coming up. I'm like, both teams are going to have players out with Origin, but we also know that with the players that the Eels have got out with injury, that there's, it's going to be a big ask. The one advantage is that it's a home game this time round against the Sea Eagles, which means that we will be there at Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, for our podcast after the game on Saturday evening. So make sure you get there. Come in to Jack's Bar and Grill, grab a feed, grab a drink, be ready for celebrating an Eels win. There you go. I'm tipping it already.
There you go. I love it, 60s. I love the optimism. And obviously we got a very quick turnaround to our next podcast with the Tuesday night NRL News and Para News podcast going up tomorrow, or being recorded tomorrow, Wednesday morning put up, and then we turn that around into a preview and the pre-game show for the Saturday game. So plenty coming from TCT, but until then, stay safe, guys. 60s, I'll let you have the final word.
Go you mighty Eels.